Hello, it's Robert. Our Thursday get-together. A little bit controversial tonight because, well, it's tonight where I am. Morning in the USA. Good morning to you. A little bit controversial. Anybody of a nervous disposition should switch off now. I'm joking. It's entitled Liars, Damn Liars and Politicians. And let's have a little bit of clarity on my beliefs now on science, because I'm not sure I really make, I discuss all these various things, but do I actually make it clear what my beliefs are? My belief that CV, and I have to use the word CV and write it on my newsletter because otherwise it might get blocked by Google and Facebook and all the other corporate media that's banning so many things. So CV is just another of those CV epidemics that come around every few years, and they've been coming around forever. And I'm not going to go back and talk about Spanish flu because there's some special things about that, and one day I might just do a whole program on that if anybody's interested. But it doesn't really bother us because we're just interested in the last 100 years, and so these things come round every so often, and I'll give you some facts on those later. Also, the scientific fact that germs are not our enemy generally. Over half your body consists of germs, bacteria, virus, fungus, and they're resident with you. They've been resident with all humans for hundreds of thousands of years. And without them, we can't be healthy. We might not even be able to live. Nobody's ever killed all the germs in the body, and because they're oxygen respiring, they don't get killed. Normally, of course. Well, sorry, never. So we can't survive without all these microbes in our body. And one particular microbe or bacteria you might have heard of is E. coli bacteria. Now, you can't live healthily if that's not resident in your digestive tract. But wait a minute, Robert, I thought E. coli caused food poisoning. Yes, that's a particular type of E. coli, and that probably comes from when people are intensively rearing animals in unsanitary conditions, and that's when E. coli comes around. But it's not a problem to people with healthy E. coli and other probiotic bacteria in their digestive tract. So if I had some E. coli infested chicken, which I don't, but if I did, it wouldn't have any effect on me. It may be slightly stomachache, whatever, but it wouldn't have an effect because my own bacteria are there to defend me, and healthy people have healthy bacteria in their body. So it's essential for healthy people to have this bacteria. You can't get away with it. And so anybody says, keep away from germs, they mean the bad germs, not the good germs. So science says that there's 4 critical lifestyle actions that will keep us really healthy, and that's consuming all the vitamins, minerals, and other nutrients that should be in our really healthy foods. But as you know, they're no longer in most foods, and supplements are needed. Science says our body, when exposed to sunlight, manufactures the critical nutrients such as D3. And that's D3 is critical, especially now with this, the major problem for people suffering from CV is the fact that they haven't got D3 and not been taking it, not been given it by the doctors or whatever. This nutrient D3 is in some foods such as mushrooms, but not very much. And everybody, unless they're getting it from the sun, and that's a couple of hours a day in a swimming costume exposed to the sun, only supplements can deliver the tens of thousands of IU that you would get from that sunbathing. And that's in the winter as well, of course. So unless you live in the desert, you're really not going to get it. If you live in the desert and you sunbathe for a couple of hours every morning, no problem. And that's why so many people go down to the desert in Arizona for the winter from the northern climes, the snowbirds, they call them. So science says consuming more of the friendly bacteria, the probiotics, you know them by, but they are bacteria. These really, really are essential, and we don't get them anymore, because you would get them by picking up fruit and vegetables off the floor and eating them, which are covered in friendly bacteria, but of course we don't do such things. And lastly, on this critical elements is breathing properly. You have to breathe properly to get the correct intake of oxygen into your body and clearing carbon dioxide. And proper oxygenation can only happen when we're walking, standing, or laying down. It doesn't happen if we're sitting down. Lung respiration does not function efficiently enough to get the oxygen we need when sitting down. If you can't walk, for whatever reason, you can lay down more than you sit down. Laying down is better than sitting down. You'll be glad to know. Some people will. Okay. Science says when a new epidemic comes around, science says that healthy people have an immune system that can deal with new germs by what's known as herd immunity. This immunity only works by being exposed over our lifetime to many different people, and especially international travel, or people that travel internationally and come and meet with us. So the more people you meet, the more exposure you get to infections, the stronger and stronger you become. And that's a fact. So to isolate people away from everybody else is almost a death sentence. To isolate everybody is a death sentence. And, anyway, I won't go too much. I'm bad enough anyway. Okay. There are a group of people who, for various reasons, are at risk. And those are the people that, didn't follow those 4 critical lifestyle things and have not been meeting people. And there's nothing worse than putting those people in end of days care homes, because they're just not meeting enough people. They're just meeting the same person day after day that comes to help them. So it's pretty bad. And these groups, really need some care. They really should be given vitamin D and vitamin C, but of course the medical system is just refusing. The medical system, it would appear, are quite happy for them to, die off quite quickly. So, to wrap it up on my considerations for what science says, and this is the science I read the studies, the less you and your family pay attention to 4 critical health actions, the more at risk you become. So the more you get healthy, the less risk of these infections coming around. In fact, you should be welcoming them, because they just make you stronger. The more you stay away from other people in isolation, the weaker your immune system will become. The government's telling you to keep away from everybody. Are they crazy? The more children are away from other children, the weaker their immune system will become. In France, children are allowed to play with each other. They've got to stay 10 foot, 3 meters away from all the other children in the playground. And the fact is, the older you get, the more critical it is that you pay attention to those 4 lifestyle actions that I said, so that you don't go into the high risk group. Now, with all this stuff I'm going to be talking about, I'm using the UK figures, but the fact is that the stats and the trends are all the same all over the world. Actually, there are some specific countries where they've had a bad time of it, and Italy's one, as you probably know. But what you don't know is that they had a new type of vaccine for the flu, and they vaccinate all of the people at risk with this flu, this particular flu vaccine. And of course, it's possible and highly probable that contributed to the weakness of their immune system, because vaccines don't make you stronger, they make you weaker. They're supposed to be fighting the infection, but of course, your immune system is supposed to be fighting the infection. There's nothing they do with a vaccine to make you stronger. That's a fact of life. So let's get into the lies. And, I am really furious about the lies I see in the media, on TV, the politicians, the pharmaceutical cartel, the establishment politicians, just all of them. And I think this is not going to go away. I think we've now moved into a new era, and we're going to have to stand up and fight our corner in this new era. And I actually say in my newsletter, we've got a World War III situation. And on one side, you've got the establishment politicians, the corporate media, and the pharma medical cartel. And they have literally declared war on the populations, the peoples of the Western countries. They're using the excuse, it's for your own good. Yeah. Do you think so? Now, either the politicians have been brainwashed and the senior medical people in each country, or they've joined with the cartels, and because they're all in the same group, they all mix with each other. Why would they not be part of the problem? There are some people, and I don't think President Trump is, not that I have too much time for him as a person, but I think he's doing his best to fight this cartel. But he's got a problem. He's got Dr. Fauci, but the evil little person, and he's got to hold on to him because the deep state really control the world in the USA, and he's fighting them. He's fighting the FBI. He's fighting the CIA, and he's doing his best to try to get the American citizens free of them. But anyway, that's going off subject. But I believe they've done this for specific reasons, and they want to enslave us all with pharmaceutical drugs that we have to take every year. Because once they start with these vaccinations, once they make it mandatory, once you have to have a certificate before you can travel, go on a plane, go on a train, go anywhere, do anything, get a job, you're going to have the vaccination. So we have to stop it before it even starts. And so I think that's what the real reason is. Of course, there is the central banks, which are all private. They sound like the banks of the country, like the Bank of England, but it's a private organisation. It's not owned by the people of the country. And the U.S. central bank, it's not owned by the federal bank. It's called. It's not owned by the people of the USA. It's owned by the various banksters, and so they're quite happy to crash the economy because they've been making a mess of it all. So, except for a few countries such as Sweden, we've all come to enjoy. They've curtailed the freedoms we've come to enjoy, and as well as enslave us. And the evidence is all around. And except for a few countries such as Sweden, the rest of the world is in some planned lockdown house arrest. Very few countries, Western countries anyway, and Sweden is an exception. The first countries to submit to lockdown was Italy and Spain. And both those countries have been ruled by fascist dictators in the lifetime of many of their citizens. So it was easy, if you like, for them to submit quickly. They've just been used to it, the older people. Of course, once the older people all start, then everybody else follows, and that's what's happened. It's happened in the UK, and we've not had a fascist dictatorship. We've also not had a democracy, but that's another story. So, going on, this is an aside. My wife and Anna and me were visiting our family in Australia early in the year. And luckily, we were due to fly back to the UK via Hong Kong airport. And it was bizarre. We were the only people walking through the airport without masks. And I say we cleared Australia luckily, as Australia, you think it's such a laid-back country, but they've got some of the most draconian lockdown laws, comparable only with Italy and Spain. The good news is US citizens are kicking back, and some states are rejecting lockdown completely. Others are actively protesting about this, and go USA, because if the USA can get free, then there's a good chance the rest of us will. You know, the USA has been instrumental in freeing us a few times in history. A few other countries, such as Germany, which is, I'm surprised, but they have large groups of citizens protesting in the major cities. So, you know, go Germany. The problem is the corporate media are hiding all this. You don't know what's been happening. You can only find it by the alternative media, and it's crazy. Because I speak to people and they go, "What? I've never heard that." But if you only listen to the corporate media, the CNNs and the BBC and people like that, then you're always going to be amazingly fooled. But just a little amazing fact: when the UK residents voted in a poll to see whether they enjoyed lockdown or they didn't lockdown, they actually voted for lockdown. 60% said yes, it's a good thing to do, and we should stay in lockdown until they bring a vaccine out. I mean, this is a year or so away. I think the world's gone crazy. I really do. How can anybody say they're happy to be in lockdown? Where do you think the money comes from? Who's going to, pay for everything? Who's going to pay for the electricity that comes to their doors? It's just crazy. It's beyond it. But the fact is that our neighbours, even where we live, not exactly here, but not far away, seem to be revelling in the lockdown, and some are even reporting their neighbours to the authorities that break the lockdown. The deep state. I can see the things coming up, but I'm not clever enough to read that and read this, so I can't comment on your. But keep them coming. Actually, good comments. Actually, but anyway, if you don't know what the deep state is by now, you've missed it, because the deep state started, and I've seen one of my earlier ones. The deep state started after the last war, when the secret services decided that it wasn't good enough for the governments to run countries. They wanted to run them so that they could actually control which governments came in. They didn't want socialist governments in the UK, so the UK deep state and the American deep state and the Australian deep state and the New Zealand deep state, and the Canadian, they all got together to form a deep state to look after them. They took over the FBI in the USA, the CIA in the USA, MI5, MI6 in the UK, and all the rest of it. Now, they apparently work for the good of the people, but they actually work for the good of the establishment. So, as I say, so back to where the UK residents actually like being locked down as a majority. So we have a real hill to climb in the UK. Maybe not in the USA. I don't think you do. So, and some figures. From January to the middle of March, that's this January to the middle of March, the total number of UK deaths was around the 5-year average. So in other words, it was no more than the average for the last 5 years, all the way through to the middle of March. In fact, it was less than one of the highest years, which was 2018, considerably less, which I'd previously said, and some people had challenged me on this, but the facts are in the government statistics. I don't make this up. I just read the statistics. And so this was much lower than 2018, the worst year for deaths in the last 5 years. Now, only a few dozen people of those weekly deaths were officially designated as CV. So in other words, a few dozen each week. And they said, we're going to have a lockdown, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And the corporate media were intimating there were vast numbers of deaths in that period, and they were lying. They would say, "Oh yes, we said they died with coronavirus." They didn't say we died of, but the way they put it, most people presumed they were dying of coronavirus, CV. So over the next 5 weeks, which is the previous 5 weeks from now, it jumped up to around 500 extra deaths per week. Just from nothing to 5,000 extra deaths per week. I mean, it's actually dropping fast now, which is nice. But the final figures over the whole year, if that goes back to what it was in the previous 3 months, will show that statistically it's hardly any different than in 2018. So why are they locking us all down? Why are they destroying our companies? I don't know what the USA is, and I suspect the real figures will be something like this. But I can't find that the actual statistics as I can in the UK. It's very, very clear. You know, the bean counters work right up to this week, actually. It's just, they do a good job telling the truth. But why did it suddenly jump up? You know, because I'm thinking, well, wait a minute. People had coronavirus, or they said they had coronavirus in the first 3 months. Why did it suddenly jump up in the last 5 weeks? And then I thought to myself, what happened 5 weeks ago? I know the medical system was saying we don't have any ventilators for treating people. We only have a few, and they ordered more ventilators in that previous 3 months. And they finally arrived 5 weeks ago. So they got everybody on ventilators that they could. Several published papers have noted ventilators make CV deaths soar. One report suggests that the comparison was 76% dead compared to 19% that just had normal standard treatment. Another one said 97% die compared to 26% in the 65 plus group. In other words, the ventilators were killing people. Now, you may have seen on the internet, if you're following all this, you'll see doctors in America, mostly, but in the UK and other countries, saying ventilators kill people. It's the wrong treatment for CV. Were they killing thousands? I don't know. Because why is it dropping? Because I suspect when the publicity was so strong that ventilators kill people and CPAP machines and simple things like that will do a better job. In fact, some doctors in the USA were saying just giving vitamin C intravenously and vitamin D3 were getting 97% recovery rate. So I suspect that they've stopped using the ventilators now because they realised they were killing so many people, and the death rate is going right down, because I can't think of another reason why it would go down. They use such things, it's reached its peak, now it's dropping down. People that are going to die are going to die if they've got this it only goes, you only get a peak if you've got herd immunity, if everybody's being allowed to mix and people get the virus and they get better, stronger. But of course, we've had this lockdown. People have not been allowed to mix 2 meters from each other. Police have arrested people for going, 2 meters from somebody else. So it's not what they say. It's not a matter of peaks. It's a matter of they must have done something different. They must have done something different to start the death rate going up, and they've done something different to start it coming down again. And that's what I think. I can't prove it, but the studies that I'm talking about here show clearly it's a huge, at least 4 to 5-fold numbers of deaths compared with ventilators compared to ordinary treatment, killing 5 times more people than just giving them oxygen and CPAP machines and other things that they give. There's lots of doctors been saying this, and I mean, if you've been watching, I am going to do, I've got a site which I'm going to put some of these videos on of doctors giving this evidence. I'm really busy, so I will get onto it. It'll probably be too late by the time I put it up there, but at least, be able to look back and keep it as a reference, and hopefully for the future you won't be taken in by the corporate media. The death rates of at-risk people could have been reduced to practically zero anyway. It just didn't even need anything, because if you have at-risk people and you have empty hotels like we had, because they closed all the hotels a long time ago, why didn't they put these at-risk people into the hotels? Why didn't they give them all the things that would help them? Vitamin C, vitamin A, D3, hydrogen peroxide, hyperbaric oxygen, CPAP machines, ozone, all these things that other doctors are getting a 97% success rate. Why didn't they put them in hotels? Why did they take them to hospitals? People have been dying because they couldn't go to hospital for their treatments, serious conditions they had. They literally stopped all people going in, even though there was very few people being treated in the first 3 months anyway. And they're obviously not treating people very well, because it spiked up to 5,000 a week for a few weeks. So I don't think they've been isolating them properly. I don't think they've been giving them any nourishment. I don't know whether anybody's ever gone to hospital and seen the food they give people. I wouldn't give it to a pig. And I really mean that. I'm not being rude, actually. In fact, if you ever go to a hospital, you'll see doctors lining up at McDonald's for their lunch. That's how smart doctors are, and the nurses. I get annoyed. You might say, well, it's up to them what they eat. Yes, it is, but it's not up to them to not make sure that the patients get nourishment. They can do what they want to themselves, I do get annoyed. We had our Prime Minister Johnson on TV the other day, and Dr. Fauci was on TV as well, but I didn't see it, but I know he's going to be saying the same thing. And he said, every other country in the world shows that lockdowns works. He's a liar. It doesn't. Worldwide studies show it doesn't. Lockdowns leave you weaker. If you can't get it, the next time something comes round, you're going to be in trouble. So you have to get it when it's out, when it's around. He also said social distancing works. It doesn't. He's a liar. That's the same as lockdown. If you don't get close up to people and, if you like, swap germs between each other, then you're going to become weaker and weaker as time goes on. It's just not true. He also said, and this is the best one, because I don't know where he's getting his information from. He said, possibly we'll get 500,000 fatalities from this. Now, it's already on the curve going down. If anybody wants this link to the UK website, I'll send it. Just ask me, and I'll put it in the chat messages here. But anybody can see it. It's a straightforward. It comes like that, goes beep, and then starts coming down again. So, obviously they frighten themselves to death, no pun intended. But our Prime Minister lied through his teeth. He said possibly 500,000 fatalities. Now, you probably heard about our Professor Neil Ferguson in the UK, who was giving, he's like the Dr. Fauci of the UK. And he probably got these figures from him, but we know Neil Ferguson is a confirmed liar. He said one of the previous infections, called bird flu, was out a couple of years ago. And he previously said 65,000 people would die from bird flu. In the post-mortem of the whole thing, 457 people died. But at the time, the media was saying, get vaccinated, it's all going to be 60,000, tens of thousands will die. 65,000 was his figure, 457. Now, with the CV, to be fair to everybody, in those days, the reason why it was 457 is because we knew the truth, because everything was properly documented. But this time, to stop people knowing the truth, the WHO, the World Health Organization, have given a false code of U07.2. And this code says, if you don't know why the person's died, if you can't be absolutely sure why the person's died, give it this code which says that it was coronavirus. So it's a fake code. They do have one for definite coronavirus where there's a test. But if you don't know, this is what the code says. Trust me, U07.2. And it says, if you can't be sure what the person died from, put this down anyway, and we'll call it coronavirus. So, who lies? Everybody lies. And so this persuaded doctors. I mean, some doctors have gone on record and publicized that we are not going to use this code. We're not going to say that people are dying of CV when they didn't. But that's some brave doctors, because I mean, I don't know what's going to happen to some of these doctors I've seen on the internet. They've really, been calling the WHO and Fauci and all the others, fakesters as they are. Anyway, that's it for today. As ever, I've put all the specific nutrients that you need for your immune system and a healthy life. And you know that my books have all got action plans, whether it's lung disease, heart disease, Alzheimer's, whatever, for the full plan, including it. And I hope you'll take notice of it all. And I hope I've not rambled too much with this, because I'm a rambler, you know what I mean? I'm not a professional presenter. I just, at 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm just going on the internet, doing my research for all this and looking for the studies. And science, I love science, actually. I hate fakesters. So you take care, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.